reason we're here, of course, is a lot of folks have met their legislators, they've met each other. Some of the folks from down south in Las Vegas have got a tour of this building and learned a little bit more about the process, so we appreciate that. But we also wanted to talk a little bit about the fiscal crisis that's affecting us. And one of the issues that we're kind of dealing with is there's a lot of mythology out there about how we're overspending on things like higher ed, human services, medical needs, and so on. And what my friends and colleagues are going to describe a little bit is why that is mythology, and in fact the reverse is actually true. I guess the question up here on this chart is fiscally conservative or just cheap? I think by the end of this short discussion, you're going to get an idea of which one we're leaning towards. So I want to introduce my friend and colleague, Jane.
So this chart came to our attention. It is, the source of it is the U.S. Census Bureau and the National Association of State Budget Offices. And what I'd like you to look at, and I think this proves the facts about our state budget, and that we are basically cheap. When you compare us to other states, and what this chart compares is the general fund spending in relationship to the gross domestic product. You'll see at the top of the list is Wisconsin, and their percentage is 14.8. We are the bottom of the barrel, 2.3%. So when people say, oh, we've just got to tighten our belts, you've heard that, right? We got to tighten our belts. There is nowhere to tighten. And I think the most interesting thing about this chart is the second column, which includes federal dollars and state general fund dollars. Notice again, we are at the very bottom, 50th, and we only spend 6.4% of the gross domestic product. Notice at the top of the list, West Virginia spends 32.1%. What does that mean? A lot of these federal programs, you have to put $1 up to get sometimes $1, $2, sometimes $3 from the federal government. Nevada won't even put up that money to get the federal dollars they deserve. And we felt this was an important chart to show and share with you and the press today because we feel it highlights the issue that this is not a spending problem, this is a revenue problem. And I'll just give you a couple of needs that we've been facing in the last week that are just startling. Of course, all of you know about the cuts to the university budget. Huge, huge cuts, 38% statewide. It appears that UNLV is closer to 52% cut. The teachers, of course, are going to get pay cuts, enormous cuts, 6%, no cost of living increase. They're already low. You know our per pupil spending, we are 47th in spending in our state, per pupil spending, 47. With these cuts, we're going to go down to the bottom. I guarantee, if they happen. The other day we had a hearing on children with disabilities. It was the most moving hearing I've seen in a long time. They were families of children with autism. And currently we serve about 100 young people. Means we help them get services to help them function in the world. There are over 200 children on a waiting list. By the time they get served, they're adults. That's how bad it is. Well, guess what? Those 100 are going to be cut if the governor's budget goes through. So we have all these examples of how poor we serve our community. And this chart just highlights those issues. You know, there are a lot of things that are never mentioned. State parks, veteran services, they're all being cut this session. And we have to stand together and say, we're already at the bottom, obviously. We need to look at revenues. And I'd like to turn this over to another speaker. We're going to have someone else talk about the revenue side of the picture.
Hi, I'm Tim Helian, and I've been doing business in northern Nevada for over 25 years. I've had a few restaurants. I currently have an event production company that produces the Tour de Day professional bike races, as well as some other events. And I gotta tell you, I find it harder and harder to do business in Nevada. It's just, so much of our bottom line is scrutinized by us just to stay afloat. This new report that comes out that claims we're number one at the bottom is making it harder. To be the bottom of the entire country in spending is crazy. It shows what some of us have known all along, despite what some of the business organizations state, and that is Nevada is confronted with a less attractive circumstance than in other states, particularly regarding the quality of education, transportation, and social services. The current possibility of cutting more costs from education makes the state look even worse than the worst. And it's hard to believe that it's hard to believe there's any consideration out there to even go lower. How are we going to hire out-of-state employees? How are we going to keep our employees from looking at opportunities out of the state? It is hard to believe a business would consider relocating to the state that holds the title of number one at least money spent in the general fund. Certainly no one with families that want good education for their kids would consider moving here. The state doesn't have room to cut costs. The answer is in more revenue. I, for one, would be willing to pay more taxes. And the plan folks have done a really, really wonderful study on how the tax structure of the state is really screwed up, for lack of better words. And these things are available up here. If any of you guys would like to read these, it's a really wonderful study that's available. We need our state to act quickly to ensure that small businesses don't disappear from Nevada. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I really appreciate that. It's one more reminder that the future of this state depends on economic diversification and investment. If we're going to attract investment, we need to have a trained workforce, and we need to have a society in which sick people don't drop dead on the sidewalks. So, very, very serious issue. And I'd like to say hi to a new friend of mine, Priscilla Acosta, who is the Speaker of the Student Senate at the University of Nevada, Reno. Thank you very much.
Okay, first off, I'd like to thank Plan and the Nevada State Legislature for having us today in this educational experience. I am a student at the University of Nevada, and being a student, I'm already feeling the budget cuts proposed by Governor Gibbons. Before the 48%, we lost our math center, our writing center, tutoring, and career services and development. And this was before the 48% budget cut. So as you can see, we're all impacted. Driving on the vans here today, I heard students talking about how they were afraid that our university is not going to be the same. 48%, that's almost half. Can you imagine the university losing half? I just can't even imagine it. My sister is in high school right now, and I'm trying to get her to come to the university. But I can't full-heartedly say that it's going to be the same university that I attended with the 48% cut. We are Nevada's future, so I'm asking each and every one of you that are here to go to your community, to your friends, to your family members, to your neighbors, to whoever you can get a hold of, and put pressure on the legislators. Nevada's higher education cannot take this cut. So please, please, please stand up for higher education. Thank you.
I would urge you also, and I want to follow up, you should also be talking taxes. Because if the universities get their budgets reinstated, guess what? Where's that money going to come from? It's going to end up coming from another budget. So we can't pit one of them against another. We can't say disabled children are any more needy than universities, teachers, parks. We've got to figure out how to broaden the pie. And I urge you, talk taxes. We don't know the best solution. We studied it, came up with our recommendations. There's lots of good ideas out there, and I'm hearing a lot of them in this building because people want to solve the problem. And I think you have their support, but they've got to hear from all of you and your neighbors and your families and support those legislators who step out and support revenue increases because they put themselves on the line for this. And it means a lot to them to hear your voices. So go out there and have a good time and come back to the legislature again. I want to have you here more often. Thank you.